Good afternoon and welcome to the men's USFHL National Club Championship match. This afternoon we have the Islanders, who were last year's champions, playing against the dcDragons, who were the champions 2 years ago. So it's going to be quite a matchup. We have a special treat for you this afternoon. We have color commentary throughout the match. We hope you enjoy it. We're going to play 4 12-minute quarters, and I'll let my co-host Gus introduce himself here.
Gus Satiriadis, longtime umpire manager at this particular tournament, and sometimes uh, talent on Big Ten Network games at Ohio State. Longtime stalwarts of the game going off against each other in the New York Islanders and the dcDragons. You'll see a bit of international skill. You'll see long-time systems of both clubs and the style of hockey and brand of hockey that they played. And we should see as an open, fast game. Plenty of respect from both sides as these teams obviously know each other. They've met in the finals a number of times throughout the tournaments that used to be held, from tournaments like Port Jarvis, the old JFK tournament that was held in D.C., the Big Apple tournament. So these teams are well versed in each other. They've gone head-to-head a number of times, and you'll see a lot of respect, a lot of skill, and plenty of talent in this men's championship match. From the brand of hockey that you're going to see, it's going to be something. What you're used to in the U.S. is a lot of pickup, a lot of local club hockey that doesn't have a lot of structure. It runs a lot of north-south, and what you're going to see is some build up from the back, but a little bit more knowledge of where each other are, because these players have, as a part of the tournament rules, they've played together throughout a season. They've won the championship in their cities, and so there's a familiarity. You may not see the build up from the back that you would see in a true international tournament, but you will find structure. You'll see players that know where their colleagues are, and you'll see plenty of overlaps. You'll see long balls. You'll see a lot of open passes and a lot of cheeky passes that'll get through and hopefully lead to some fantastic goals.
So having Gus here is really interesting for field hockey novices like myself. One of the things we've noticed throughout the tournament is the speed of the men's game in comparison to the women's game, which is what we're really used to seeing so much of here in the U.S.
You're going to see a lot of speed, and you'll see some strength that, as umpires, we're going to let the ball flow a little bit more. The umpires on today's match, William Larriman, Andrew Estrada, I've been coaching them a little bit to kind of keep the play open, allow the skill to show, because these players have the strength and speed to play through what might be more commonly called foul, and should allow for open, entertaining play that's should be a little bit easier to umpire from them, but it will allow for the skill of some of these gentlemen, as we do have a couple of internationals on this championship. It'll allow for some great skill and some demonstration of what hockey can be from an entertainment perspective.
So when you say play through, can you give us an example of what you're talking about?
A lot of times in lower division hockey, what we're finding is it's easier for the players, if the ball hits the foot, if there's a stick tackle to where it would be deemed a foul per the book, that we call it right away. And it doesn't lead to an entertaining brand of hockey. And what we're going to do is, if the opportunity allows itself, yes, there may be a foul, a push in the back or something like that, but with the strength of the player, we're going to allow that player carrying the ball, if they're not disadvantaged, to go down and what we call play advantage. And it should lead to more open play, more pretty play. It doesn't mean that we didn't see the foul, but we are going to let it play.
So
Like this.
this is where people comment all the time about advantage, and for hockey novices, I think advantage is always something difficult to understand. This sounds a lot more complex than the high school, oh, she still had a shot type of advantage.
It's very much different from the standpoint of what's often confused in lower levels of hockey is the difference between possession. Did the player have the ball, or did they have true advantage? And advantage is more of, were they able to make a move once they've had the ball in open play to allow something of the next level happen? It is really, were they able to get past the person that fouled them so that they could have that next opening and move down towards the field, down towards the goal?
So I think we've all sat through those matches where it seems like it's a whistle-a-thon, and it's just one whistle, and sometimes more whistle than play. And it seems like that might be what we're not seeing here.
We may not see that at all, and with luck we won't. And where that really comes into play is in situations in the circle where at the high school or junior high level, even some of the college level, where there's corner after corner because there's one foul after the next. What we're going to see is the opportunity for a player to, if they have that shot, take the shot and get the goal that they're all searching for, as opposed to nobody wants to watch a game that's just whistles and corners.
Right.
That's not exciting. What we want to see is our goals, because that's what makes our game phenomenal.
Interesting. So I have to say, having seen several games that were all whistles and corners, it's interesting to understand the difference.
Yeah, this is where, as you spoke of earlier, the speed of play, the strength of the players, it's a little more than what people are used to seeing at home when they're watching a high school or their club teams that are under 19, under 16, where there's more stoppage in play. This is very much an open game, and really where the umpires step in is there a disadvantage to the player because of the foul happening? And it should, as this happened down the sideline, there was a small infraction that could have been whistled, and what people might be used to seeing is whistled. But Andrew Estrada, who's the umpire on the side nearest to us, he was able to play that through, and then you see that attempt towards goal happen because of the speed, strength, and openness.
This explains why sometimes we see the men especially get angry when there's a call that looks like it's in their favor, but they're like, couldn't you just not make that call?
And that happens not just in the men's game. That happens at a high-level university match, no matter what division it is. And I don't want to take away, because we have a complexity with the university matches that some people feel there's a difference between a D1 or a D3 school. There's high-level hockey played at all levels. And as players get used to showing skill and as players build strength, and again, gender neutral in saying that, what we're finding is they want the open game. They want the ability to come down and score. They get as frustrated as everybody else does from a fan standpoint as to the start-stop part of the game. There's no flow. There's no excitement to the game when we do that. Our first corner of the match has been called. This one was a shot where it was deflected towards the attack player on the other side and came down in a dangerous place. So a little bit of onus on the goalkeeper to do more with that ball and put it in a place where there's not a lot of danger to himself or his teammates. He played it down, and that the attack player from the Islanders just was right there.
For the new people who have not really watched a lot or played a lot of field hockey, what's with the masks?
This is one of the nuances of our game, is the penalty corner, and a lot of traditionalists in this particular situation love the penalty corner, and there's talk in the safety issue because of the speed at the ball on the first shot of the penalty corner. The masks in this situation are for the safety because it's a very attack advantage situation to where there needs to be protection based on the speed of the ball coming at them. So the masks are strictly for safety, and it's because they set up in a space that is exactly where the attack player is aiming for.
Looks like another penalty corner here. And that fast, we're coming towards the end of the first quarter. Just about a minute of play left. So since we have a nice corner here, the fellow on the end line, known as the inserter, rules governing him?
He has to have 1 foot off the line, or 1 foot off the pitch. The umpire whistles to put the ball in play. He must play the ball immediately as part of their play, and then really he may not play the ball again until it's been touched by a teammate. It's the only place on the pitch where we don't have the option of the self-start. So as the ball is inserted, it may be passed around, it may move towards goal, but it may not be a goal until the ball has exited the circle on the penalty corner. Once it's exited the circle, comes back in, then the ball could be considered by the umpire, if it crosses the goal line and touched by the attack, that it could be a goal. And there's rules around the shot height and the style of shot towards that as well.
Yeah, I have to say, anyone who sat through even a high school game has had the fan screaming goal and celebrating, and everybody else is looking at them like they're insane because there's no goal.
Yeah, one of the great nuances of our game is that it's the only sport in the world, and I've done a lot of research on this. It's the only sport that I've found where you cannot score from anywhere on the pitch. There are rules around where we can shoot from, and especially in the penalty corner situation, there are a set of checks that must be met before we can allow a goal as an umpire in that situation.
Interesting. So I have to say, so far it looks pretty even.
It's very even, and that comes down to the respect level that both teams have for each other. There's not going to be a lot of contesting off ball. There's going to be a lot of fair play. There is a ton of respect for these two sides, and when I happened to be downstairs after their last match to see the level of excitement between these teams that they were going to be playing each other, it was something that both sides said that they were looking forward to, because that's something that they had hoped for coming into the weekend, was that they'd be facing each other.
Nice. So I have to say, as opposed to some other matches, it seems a lot less physical, although maybe it's early minutes or early quarters.
It's early minutes. They know each other. They know who they could come up against, because you look at one side and there is a lot more speed in it. And that's not taking away from, say, the DC side. I will say that they use a lot of their experience, and we've got folks that have been playing on these sides for a very long time, but we've also got some international experience as well. But you look at the longtime stalwarts of, say, New York Islanders. You've got Ellis Chance, and you've got Andy in the back, Ferguson. Those guys have been around for the last 20 years easily, playing in that New York Islanders strip of blue and orange. On the other side, you've got Jesse Larson, who's kind of led that team for a long time. Jesse spent some time in the U.S. national team outdoor and indoor system, and these guys are definitely leaders on their teams. Also, from an international standpoint, the New York Islanders have Teague Marcano, who just came back from the CAC games in Santo Domingo a couple weeks ago. On the other side, you've got Gigo Gordon, who represented Jamaica, who's playing for DC. So both of those gentlemen were in Santo Domingo representing their home countries respectfully and as leaders as well. So you're going to see a little bit of that international flair if those guys get the opportunity for the shots that they love to take. They are the prototypical goal scorers, and they're going to look for those opportunities. Probably you're going to see Marcano with what we call the reverse chip. You're going to see Gigo that's going to go for something that's a little more flair. So they have a style to their games that they really like to play, and they're going to enjoy putting on that type of show on this type of stage.
Well, to the credit of USFHL, it's quite something to see that caliber of player here on the field. We know that men's hockey hasn't really taken off here yet. We expect it to. It's an awfully fun game.
It very much is, and where we have a lot of expatriates from, say, the islands on the New York Islanders, you do have some expatriates from different parts of the world on the dcDragons team, but you've also got a homegrown in Dean Schiller, who's another person like Jesse Larson, who's going to lead from the back and is somebody that's solid and looked to. You look at how these teams got here. The New York Islanders won in regulation. The dcDragons had to come through the shootout process, and they had to lean on Dean Schiller's goal to get them to this situation. Here's an example of the game of where these guys know each other, and you look at New York Islanders, and they're going to spread the field. That's going to open it up for these throws, and it's also going to allow for...
And they get a goal out of it.
It's going to let them speed and show their spacing.
Who was at about the 25, who didn't move. He just stood there. He knew he was going to get that ball back and be able to distribute it. Didn't move a muscle.
Yeah, that's the familiarity of playing with each other more than what I've called for a number of years, the mercenary hockey of let's play together on a weekend for a tournament. That's where this U.S. Field Hockey League has done a fantastic job of giving us the opportunity to let guys be on a team together that knows where each other are. Yeah, that goal from the New York Islanders, that was Darren Isla. Just happened to be in a great spot. Again, you look at that ball that came in from about the 25, just placed perfectly to him, and it shows the simplicity of our game. Hockey is if you go back to the old MacGyver, there was an episode where he talked about pool being nothing but a physics board. This is an enlarged physics table. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It's the simple ball that's struck right, that's deflected or popped up in a way that allows for a beautiful goal, open net, and it's part of what makes the beauty of our game. Our first card of the game, a little disciplinary action. It was for a push, and this is a situation where there was a push. The umpires allowed for flow and play to happen. The first stoppage of play that they could, they took the opportunity to come back to the foul and issue the card for discipline. And this is something that allows for the openness and is where the game has evolved to allow the openness as opposed to what the defender was trying to do was break down play and stop it. So, again, it's the fluidity of the game that we've deemed important, and everybody has learned to appreciate. one of the things that you usually hear in lower skilled games or lower level games is that ball that comes off the ground and you hear high ball, you hear high ball. There's only one instance where the high ball truly comes into effect, and I talked earlier about the penalty corner. The first shot on goal, if it's a hit, has to enter the board, has to enter the cage at a height lower than 18 inches. The rest of the game is very much based on danger, and that's a perfect example. The ball popped up off a stick, it deflected off another, and it bounced 2 or 3 times down the pitch. At no point did either umpire deem that that was a dangerous play. So it allows for kind of creative play by, in that instance, the New York Islanders left wing to progress the ball downfield. Now, he eventually lost it because the DC defense kind of came over and forced a little bit of a turnover, but that openness is so important in the attractiveness and the beauty of our game. Our first corner on this end for the DC Dragons, and on the stick stop, you spoke of the injector earlier. The stick stop here is our Jamaican international, Jigo Gordon.
Wow.
Quick little drag flick there that was really easily stopped by Steve Dennis, who he has well as spent some time in the U.S. national team indoor system.
He was our shootout king last year, as I recall.
Yeah, he reads the game really well from a goalkeeping standpoint. Very easy to work with. He leads his defense in front of him quite nicely. It's one of the things as an umpire you get to hear is the direction and the respect that he gets from his defense based on what he wants them to do to help protect his goal.
Oh.
There's that Teague Marcano who's going to pick up the ball using his knowledge of the international game, start the fast break and counter off the attack that was on this end by the DC Dragons. Now on the other end, you've got Jesse Larson that just steps up in front of the ball where it was quite obvious to him where it was going to come across to, because we again know the international flair, and Jesse steps up and takes that ball nicely to stop the break from the Islanders.
It's interesting to me to watch him put that ball into the circle. You see some teams where they just whale that thing as hard as they can, and he seems to always just kind of put it there casually, it appears.
Yeah, and again, it's such a simple game. It's often overcomplicated by sometimes coaching, sometimes players feeling like they have to do a whole lot more, but it is a simple game. It is simple physics, and the casualness of somebody, just a nice easy swing to put the ball across, leads to more opportunities for your own team, as opposed to the panicked hit that we may have seen in previous games, and we may see in this game, depending on what the score is in the latter minutes of the game.
So stress has a little bit to do with it.
Lot of bit to do with it.
A lot to do with it. That's interesting. Both teams look very relaxed.
Yeah, and that's that comfort level of playing with each other. These teams have played championships against each other, and in some tournaments they may have played with each other, depending on what the rules of the tournament were. Again, that comes back to is like I said, I've called it a number of times, mercenary hockey, where do you want to play together this week? Sure. Do you want to play together in 2 weeks? Fantastic. And that's how they would put teams together for some of the tournaments that we have in the States.
So the interesting thing to me is that all these people have day jobs.
And that's the other thing. There's a level of respect that both of these teams have. Is all of these players have day jobs. Some are university coaches. Some are teachers. Some are stockbrokers. There's a number. I mean, there's a lot of intellectual talent on the pitch as there is as much as the athletic talent. And everybody, while they want to be competitive, they also realize and respect that somebody's got to go to work on Monday.
So we're not out to kill anybody. Everybody
There's
has to be there on
everybody wants to
Monday.
beat the other side, but they don't want to
Harm them.
beat them, so to speak.
Oh.
I spoke of the international flair on both sides, and actually, as I think about it, one of our umpires, William Larriman, who's on the far side, has represented Venezuela at a number of international tournaments as well.
Wow.
That's how I was actually lucky enough to meet him a long time ago.
So the good news for people watching is that if this looks interesting and fun to you, and believe me, it is, you can get in the game yourself. You can go to usfhl.com, click Find Field Hockey, and get connected up with a team at any level that you're playing. We have social teams and highly competitive teams, as you're seeing here. So one thing I will say that we watch a lot of sports in our house, and so different from soccer. Nobody's diving. You don't see people suddenly go down and roll around on the turf.
No, if they're rolling around on the ground, there is usually a purpose to it. It usually is like this particular situation where a player took the ball off the body. Whether or not it was deflected off of him, that was some of the discussion that went to William on the far end before he called a penalty corner, or after he called the penalty corner. And so I've said it on other broadcasts that hockey is a bit of the anti-soccer because there isn't diving. There's not a lot of false injury time. A lot of these players will get up off the floor and come right back to the game. And here's another nuance of a game of we've called the penalty corner prior to the end of the half. The game cannot end on a penalty corner or penalty stroke. And so even though there's no time left on the clock, very much like soccer, this is extra time, and it's played until the corner ends. There's a number of rules that are a part of that, and in this particular one, there was a little bit of, I won't call it dissent, but a little bit of potential encouragement that this should have been allowed to play. What you saw, William whistle, was that there was a backstick, and this is a nuance of our game. You are only allowed to play with the flat side of the stick, something that ice hockey players, when they come over to our game, seem to struggle with. So that particular insertion.
Get a lot of ice hockey players.
What I find is from an ice hockey standpoint, at the university level, say a Miami of Ohio, University of Michigan, University of Vermont, Michigan State University, where schools have both men's ice hockey and field hockey, there's almost a challenge game that happens on an annual basis where the field hockey team will try ice hockey and the ice hockey team will come to try field hockey. Well, the beauty of it is, depending on where the girls come from or the young women come from, if they come from the Northeast, they've played a lot of ice hockey, and so there's less of a hard transition for them. The ice hockey players have a hard time adapting to field hockey because they're used to playing with both sides of their stick. Even though there may be a bit of a bow to their stick, there is a little bit of a difficulty for them to get that transition to the game.
Nice. So if you're an ice hockey player out there and you want to give it a shot, definitely do that. We have lots of opportunities for people to jump in and play. And
there's been a couple of situations where you have the ice hockey player, which they can play left-handed. This is very much a right-handed game. You've had a player from University of Michigan maybe a couple of times in the last 6 or 7 years where they've played, we'll call it upside down.
With a goalie stick.
Well, they'll either play with a goalie stick or they play opposite-handed where it looks like they play with a left-handed stick. And they're just used to playing on the opposite side because that's how they played ice hockey. And their stick skills are a little bit more enhanced because they're overcoming it's not a handicap of the right-sided stick, but they're just naturally left-handed. So we'll break for another minute and a half through halftime.
And they're right before we watered the field, and I understand that the watered pitch is going away. Do you know anything about that?
So this is a part of the game that's very interesting. It's something I learned a couple weeks ago. Um, everybody talks about the watering of the pitch, and the reason why it's done. There's a lot of physics behind it, and there's part of a speed of play, but it has to do with friction, compaction, and keeping the ball on the pitch. There's a lot of pieces and parts with the technology of our game. As we move past the Paris Olympics, there's movement to, as you say, go to a waterless pitch. It's kind of a misnomer, but we throw so much water on it that we look at the growth of the game in countries that are under drought, that don't have a lot of viable drinking water to then play a sport or grow a sport to where we're throwing gallons of water on a piece of carpet. It's kind of a hard ethical
Kind of an
argument.
in-your-face, no thank you, gosh.
So what they have done is that companies like Forbex or AstroTurf or the other companies that do carpet for athletic competitions, they are doing a reduced water. And there's a lot of technology that's come into it where after, as I said, the Paris Olympics are going to look to put in pitches, and I think there's been 3 that have been put in worldwide that are on this reduced water challenge, and it'll be more towards what we're going to see probably as the pitch in Los Angeles in 2028.
Nice.
There's Dean Schuler showing his skill of homegrown talent here in the States. Given the opportunity for a young guy to play, develop his skills as a high school student and into his university years. Just the calmness that he comes in as a central defender to go up against an equally skilled player from the Islanders and just make it look very easy on the defense.
Maybe not so happy with that call.
Yeah, little fighting, a little banter back and forth with the umpire because he's trying to lobby for a call or say, I wasn't trying to do that. He realizes he may have been behind play, may have stick tackle, but he didn't think it was as bad as what maybe the umpire, Andrew Estrada, whistled it out for. Obviously, Andrew in my opinion, got that call absolutely correct. As his boss at the tournament, I'm going to say that he did that. But again, these players will try and lobby or work the umpire. And there's an example of physics right there. Simple touch. If you looked at the gentleman who scored the goal, and it looked like Marcano who got the touch on it, he didn't move his stick. He just redirected the ball. And that's the simplicity of this game. A lot of times you see young women that think they have to have a whack at it, and you see younger guys that come from another sport, say baseball or ice hockey, that feel like they have to really power one in. His stick was essentially motionless on the ground, and you saw the reaction of a hard pass across that was on the floor and then deflected up into the net. It was a fantastic goal. It was Isla with the goal. He got his stick down in front of Marcano.
That'll be his second goal of the game.
It is. And on this example, here's the respect of the players that have known each other and gone up against each other for years. Yes, the ball was played dangerously off the free hit. You see him go over to, and it looked like Ellis Chance, who took the legitimate evasive action to get out of the way, the reason for the danger, and went over, hey, you okay? And then we can move on with it. little bit of a mistrap, and you see the players lobbying to say that his stick was down and that there was no problem. Um, but obviously, you see William Lehrman giving the penalty corner or awarding the penalty corner because the ball played off the back of the stick. Potential obstruction on top of that, um, easily decided on for the penalty corner on that end.
So clearly, we don't have video review at this level. How much does that change the game?
It is a fantastic add to our game, and why I say that is umpires are given a number of tools. The video referral is just one more tool that we have in our belt.
So why did it's gonna jump subjects? Why did that get called off?
It looked like there's based on the signal that William is trying to communicate over to the dcDragons. It's very much had to do with a stick, and whether it was on the back of the stick or whether it was a stick shield, it was one of those two reasons. Okay.
I think that there's $1 million to be made by whoever comes up with a umpire call translation software that immediately flashes overhead what the call is. For those of us who don't know all the rules and don't know all the gestures.
Well, and it's probably a lot more PG than what you find in what might come out of our mouths as umpires on the pitch. There's a number of things that there's a familiarity that we have with these guys, and having umpired myself 2 of their matches over the weekend where I was lucky enough to be on the field with these players, there's a banter that we have and things that we might say that's not really for publication. Yes, that software would be fantastic and probably at a PG-13 level versus what we might say back and forth.
If you could just translate the hand movements, that would be awesome.
So, and we were talking about the video umpire and the chance for video review. That particular situation would be one where the defense would have to weigh, would it be worth challenging for, because each team gets one, and you use it to lose it type of reward system. So if it's one of those things where if they were 100% sure that it wasn't off the back of the stick, it didn't hit a foot, or it wasn't obstruction, then they might say, let's have a look at it. And they would challenge the umpire decision. And the concept is not whether or not the umpire was correct, but is there any reason to change the decision on the field by the umpire? And I think that's a misnomer, or that's a misunderstanding that's often met when you see the video umpire get involved at either the FIH Pro League, the international tournaments that would be in the Pan Am region, or even domestically where we're lucky enough to have it in a number of our Division I conferences. And it's not something where the umpires are looking to see whether or not they were correct. And there's Marcano with his first goal of the tournament, or first goal of the championship game. He's had 2 earlier today. He had 2 last night as well.
That's going to put the Islanders up 3-0, but we saw the last pool play match last night. They were up 3-0 going into the 4th quarter against Atlanta, and Atlanta somehow came out like a house on fire, tied it up, and the Islanders only sealed the deal, I think, at the end of regulation on a corner.
It was a badly timed tackle by the Atlanta defense, and there were seconds left, and it was funny because I was chatting with a longtime friend from Atlanta who was who was in the women's championship game, and she made a comment about the lack of concentration in the last 15 seconds to where that penalty corner was awarded, which allowed the New York Islanders to beat the Atlanta team. But that was a change in tactics that the Atlanta coach, who's actually a player, he's just injured, but Stan Pinto, made some substitution changes that allowed Atlanta to come back, as maybe New York kind of got back on their heels and played more of a defensive structure. They changed their game plan, which was, let's go out and use our spacing, use our speed, come up with that 3-goal lead, and then when they took their foot off the pedal, that allowed Stan to make some changes, put personnel in, and in that fourth quarter, almost pull off what might be, what many
That would
might
have
call
been
an upset.
a big upset. I got to tell you, they had no wins going into that match.
Here's an example of a hard foul outside the circle. Most of the time, you're going to see a penalty corner that's awarded inside the circle for just a common foul. This particular situation was a hard foul outside the circle to where the defender, his intent was to break it down. And so Andrew Estrada, the umpire here, sees this as an opportunity for a little control in the match to say, nope, we're not having this. Your intent was to break him down. Yes, you were 2 yards outside the circle. We're going to upgrade to a penalty corner, and you're also going to spend 2 minutes off with a little bit of personal penalty as well with a green card.
So this really is about umpires keeping control of a match so that things flow and people are respectful.
It's control is such a hard word from a standpoint of the umpire's not necessarily looking to control. The umpire's really trying to promote safety in the game. And while, yes, it's under that auspice of the word control, I want to take that negativity out because a lot of times people look at control from the standpoint of a negative impact or trying to assert themselves into the game.
Like you're going to decide the outcome.
Exactly, and that's
not what they want
what
to do.
either one of these gentlemen or any of the 8 others that I've had at this tournament are trying to do. They're very much promoting the skill. They're very much promoting the safe play and stepping in when they have to. When a player breaches a rule, and in this situation where they come in with a little bit more of a physical play, and we need to encourage a little bit more better behavior with an upgraded penalty and a little time off to think about what you've done.
To keep people from maybe rolling down the hill of bad behavior.
Well, and that's the thing is you look in some of the other games where an umpire may not have done this, and you look at vigilante justice, and you see that in other tournaments where we might not have the level of umpiring that we've been lucky enough and fortunate enough to have at this tournament. I've talked a number of times about the physics of the game and the spacing and the speed, and what you find is that when the play is very open, it's very easy to see where these passes might go next, and this openness and it promotes just really pretty looks at it, and it allows for simple passes and a lot of diagonals and a lot of 1-2s down the pitch to see what might come next and really progress more towards the attacking side of their field.
So I have to say another thing that is different in these games from others that I've watched is that when you see a team on their heels, you don't really see the superstar effect of one player thinking they have to change the outcome all by themselves.
No, it's very much a team game, and it's very hard. And even you look over the last few years where you might have a standout player at the university level, they give a lot of credit to the players that get them the ball. They can't do it by themselves. And there's been maybe 1 or 2 players that I've seen in my career as an umpire, in my career as a fan, or even coaching. There's been 1 or 2 players that I've seen that have really been able to take over and dominate a game. One of them would be a gentleman that T. Marcano might play with or play for over in England, or play back with in Trinidad, is Quan Brown. He was somebody that could, in an instant, change a game by himself.
Wow.
But what these guys realize, and a lot of it is because they're not training in the national team system 24/7. They have those day jobs. They can't do it all by themselves.
Well, that's a bonus for those of us who are just sitting here watching, because I think it makes a really enjoyable game to see the attack come from multiple fronts at the same time as they're coming into a circle. And at the same time, I think you see the defense set up to withstand the attack or repel it, and again, working in concert. Very interesting.
You do see that, and
Very
what what
strategic.
what this is, what this kind of allows us to do, and one of the things that the USFHL has allowed us to do is to help grow the game at the masters level, and what that is uh, there's masters hockey, which is anything outside of the senior national team, and that those are the teams that usually represented international tournaments at the Olympics, World Cups. Those senior teams is what that is. Now, as we get to the senior years of our life, there are opportunities for players to play, and that's at the masters level when they can't spend all their time in a national team system. The masters tournament allows age groupings of about every 5 years, so
Wow.
35, 40, 40, 50, um, and
So you're
you,
never too old to play.
and this open spacing shows that the beauty of our game, that we can have 80, 90-year-old players, say Mr. Tom Harris, who's out in California, one of the legends of our game, Alva Surrett from Atlanta, another legend of our game. As they get older, they can still play because the openness of the game and because of the spacing gives it is a game for life, and that was something that the FIH and others kind of promoted. Is hockey is something that doesn't end when you're 35, doesn't end at 41. And you look at the tournament in Santo Domingo 2 weeks ago, the team captain from Bermuda, 51 years old.
Wow. That's amazing.
I was speaking in the semifinals with a longtime friend of mine who has played tournaments for, used to play for Tri-State in the New York area, and then as that team dissolved, he played tournaments with the New York Islanders. He's like, I'm 53, I'll just do a fun tournament. These competitive tournaments are more for the younger guys. There's an example of where a potential foul could have happened, but Andrew Estrada rightfully says that there was really nobody disadvantaged by it and allowed play to continue, even though the ball may have come off the foot of.
So you're not calling a foul just to call a foul.
We're not calling a foul, even though the ball might have come off of Steven Notter's foot. It's one of those things that it didn't disadvantage the other side,
Okay.
and that's one of the things. And people are like, well, what's the difference between umpire and referee? Referee is very much like in the NBA, very much like in the NHL. A foul is a foul. It's very much defined. This is something, does it impact the game? It's like the umpire behind the plate in baseball. Is the strike a strike? You know, where did it enter the strike zone? Where did the ball cross the plate? Each player is going to have a slightly different strike zone. This is, did the foul potentially impact play? Looks like DC's gotten their first
And
on the board.
DC has scored.
Looks like the left wing, and trying to check a number here.
The Islanders might be having flashbacks from the Atlanta game.
I think that the self-talk that they had after their last game, they may not have the same problem, but that looked like Gregor Schuler by number. But it might have been also Gunnar Gotts. A little bit hard to see the number from this distance.
Number 7, I think they're saying.
There's Gigo with his touch, the Jamaican international.
Oh, and the Islanders have got to be having that same feeling. This is the same thing that happened yesterday.
Yeah, here's proof that you have to play the full time. You have to play all 12 minutes of all 4 quarters.
We have a game.
Yeah, well, I thought the first one might have been to Gregor Schuler. This one was definitely to the number 11, Gregor Schuler. And I want to point out that you know, the person that might get a lot of blame on that is the goalkeeper, but this is definitely a team game. If Steve can't get across the goal, he's got to have somebody on that back post to help him out. The importance of having your defender there, not leaving and going off into their own space, definitely man marking to come up and fill that gap and make sure that that ball's not going to get tipped in.
I think in general, defenders don't get a lot of hype, but I do think that they are the difference in championships. And I think in the women's game, we saw that. They were two well-matched teams on the attack, but it was the just relentless defense by Washington that Atlanta just couldn't get through.
They did a phenomenal job of team defense, as you were saying, and that is sure, the goalkeeper gets a lot of finger pointing, a lot of the blame if things don't go right, and I might lean towards my home NHL team, where the goalkeeper got a lot of blame even though he had no defense in front of him. The Washington women's field hockey team did a phenomenal job of stepping up, making sure that no attack player was left unmarked, and having a similar situation. And now what the Islanders are up against when the dcDragons are having at least one or two people up there alone in front of the cage with no friends next to them.
Not nice.
Oh, great three-dimensional skill with that aerial ball. Nicely touched to a more open space to allow that play to come down and allow the corner opportunity to happen now for the New York Islanders. Nice job of opening up the game by going three-dimensional, going into the air. Nice 20, 25-yard lift, tapped up to an open player on the right wing. And now we have this penalty corner opportunity for the New York Islanders. And what you're looking for from the attacking side is probably you want to see in a major league batting average 330, 400%, in that 40th percent of conversion rate. A lot of cheers at lower levels. Every corner is a goal. Not really. Not with a good defense. Right. Not with a missed trap. Not with a missed
hit. Some of those crazy flyers. Oh my goodness.
But if you have a team that's got a 30% conversion rate, 40%, that's a high success rate.
So what happened here?
Well, it looked like as the umpire blows the penalty corner in, the defense has to wait until the ball is injected. As soon as the ball's off the line, the defense can come out of the cage. Looked like our friend Gigo decided to try and mistime it a little bit, and he left early. So he has been sent to midfield, and there's one fewer defender on the penalty corner. Again, you look at the subtle gestures, the subtle nuances of these two teams playing each other. There's a situation where the ball hits a foot, nobody's in the zip code, we're going to continue playing on. But you look at the friendliness and the respect that both of these teams have for each other. A little bit of a foul, players got tangled up. It wasn't like they had to beat each other senseless. There was no pounding the chest to say I'm better. There's a lot of respect, sorry, you okay? And they allowed each other to get set for that restart.
I have to say, it makes it a lot more fun to watch.
Yeah, a lot of respect in this game. And you have this even in international tournaments where it's national teams. These players work hard. It's not an easy game from a skill standpoint to develop. There's a lot of these skills that I can't even come close to performing, and that's maybe why people said I've got into umpiring. But it takes a lot of skill and a lot of talent to do this. And you look at the gait that these players are running at, they're not running upright like a cross country or marathon runner. They're not
Right.
running bases or running routes like, say, football wide receiver. They're bent over. Um, it's an unnatural gait when they play, and so you look at the friendliness and the respect that each player has. Now they may try to one up or try to do a couple
Well,
things
it is
to
a
influence the
competition.
umpire, but it's one of those things where they do have a lot of respect at all levels for the talent and the skill that they all have. And what you find is, especially after the game, and what we'll see, is you'll see a lot of these players embracing a lot of high fives and a lot of congratulations because they've gone up against each other for so long.
I have to think as a team, that's so much more beneficial for them, for both sides, mentally.
It is, and what you find in some of the other games that I've seen this weekend is where teams start to unravel, where they start to have problems and they fall behind by a goal or two very quickly is when they turn around and they start arguing with each other, arguing with the umpire,
Ah,
when they try to be right 100% of the time. Um, they it's easier for them to unravel, and that's when you see quickly, because of the speed of this game, where you can see a two-goal differential happen within 30, 45 seconds. Really, if we had a full pitch here and you see basically the camera view is showing the white line is the half of the pitch. Pitch is 100 yards long. It takes about, and I've seen this happen in a university match, 6 seconds to go from a 16-yard hitter, what's at the top of the circle, to a goal on the opposite end. It doesn't take long to score in this game. Um, and so a
no, it doesn't.
turnaround can happen very quickly.
The counterattack off a corner on the opposite end sometimes is stunning.
Yeah, it's very quickly because of the speed, the three-dimensional aspect of the game, and the openness when it comes to uh, 11 players on a pitch this size. You may not see it when you're watching American football on television, but there's a lot of space on a field that's 100 yards long when you've got 22 players out there. The beauty of this game, very much like soccer, is you never really have condensing, except for maybe what we may see here by DC is if they pull the goalie to try and tie this game. Um, you may see more of a push into their attacking circle, but you're not going to see just guys left out to dry or a condensation of space until that point.
And that's the game. So, in a repeat, the Islanders are once again National Club Championships winner for the United States Field Hockey League. That was a great game.
Nicely played. A lot of respect from players, umpires, the coaching staffs of both sides. And like I said, you see a lot of high fives, some hugs. Um, these guys know each other both on a sporting event level and at a professional level and a social level as well. So it was fun to watch from
This
that
is a great
standpoint.
game. I mean, this is what you want to see, right? Two fabulous teams.
Yeah, there's great skill, and it's very much a display of where this game can be at this national club level.
Okay, well, Gus, I want to thank you for being willing to come in and give us the color commentary on the game. I think it was illuminating, to say the least, and really appreciate it. We hope you'll come back and do this for us more often.
It's my pleasure. If needed, just ask. I think that there might be some other talent available, but no, it's definitely my pleasure to add some insight to both the club level game as being associated with this for 20-something years, but also a little bit of international insight as well as the umpiring side. I think that, from the technology of the game, the umpiring understanding, the skill level of these players, it's something that we definitely need to highlight more. And I think it's a great start, and we need to do a whole lot more of this.
Awesome. Well, you can count on us giving you another call. I'm Laura Jones. You've been watching the Men's National Championship match here at Newark, Delaware, at the University of Delaware. We're running side-by-side field, so it's been a lot of fun. And hit like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we hope to bring you a lot more field hockey. We still have a couple more games to go in